Everyone, Adam here. So is your podcast. I have another interview for you today. I got to sit down with Serah Henesey to talk about her new movie, The Surprise Visit. The Surprise Visit is available January 14th, so just a couple weeks away as of this recording, this posting. Check it out. It's a cool thriller. And not only was Serah one of the leads in it, but she was also really instrumental into having it made. We go into that in the interview. She wears a lot of hats on this one and really goes for it. This interview also went to some cool places that I did not see coming, I did not expect. Serah, before her Hollywood career, had massive, massive success in European nations like Turkey and Germany, and she was on one of the top rated shows in like three countries simultaneously. I still can't wrap my head around it even a week or so after I got to talk to her. The posting got delayed because of the holidays. Apologies to Serah. But it was a fascinating conversation. I mean, I know this one goes a little longer than usual, but it is so worth hanging in there for the whole thing. Serah is a fascinating person to talk to, a real talent, and just someone who gets things done, which, as you know, if you've been watching any of my videos for any amount of time, I'm all about. So I'll shut my mouth so Serah can tell you her fascinating story. Enjoy the interview. Hey everyone, Adam here. So is your podcast. I'm sitting down with Serah Henesey to talk about her career and her newest movie, The Surprise Visit. How you doing, Serah?
Wonderful, thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Yes, thank you for coming on. We just
Mhm.
were talking a little bit before, crazy with the holidays, so I appreciate you
Yeah.
making the time.
Oh, thank you. Happy holidays to everyone watching.
Yeah, for sure. um, so I guess starting at the beginning,
Mhm.
when did you know you wanted to be an actor, and kind of how did you get your start? Big
Um,
question.
I was a science student at school, but I had a lot of hobbies, and dancing was one of them. And I danced somewhere, and a theater director, I caught the eye of a theater director, and he pulled me aside and he said, "You're very brave on stage as a dancer. Let's see you as an actor." And I thought, "Oh, okay." Well, I had no intention of acting. I thought it'd be a cool hobby. That was my initial thought, but then I fell in love with it, and here I am, some 20, 30 years down the line.
Yeah, you have a lot of projects under your belt, so that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I worked a lot. I've been quite fortunate, so I can't complain. And then later on, so I started acting early on and training early on. But then I think it was in my mid 20s. I actually wanted to go and get like a proper diploma of sorts. So I went and I studied in London and did a lot of theater in London, and here we are.
Oh, that's great.
Uh-huh.
Uh, about how old were you when the dancing thing was going on, and then it spurred into acting?
I started dancing probably at like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow, so really young.
Yeah, really young, really
Yeah.
young. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
somebody just said, "Here's a career as an actor."
Well, yeah, it was in a musical. My first role was in a musical. I was a dancer in the musical, and I had like 2 or 3 lines, and yeah, it just kind of took off from there. And then I started off in Australia. So I was born and raised in Australia, and I have Turkish family. And I went to Istanbul when I was 19 and ended up becoming a Miss Turkey. Don't hold it against me. A weird title in my early 20s. And then I just got offers. So, yeah.
Wow, so you've also lived all over. You lived in some cool places.
Yes, I've had TV shows in Germany and Holland, and I've shot 3 films in Bulgaria. I have a rather large career in Turkey. I'm a household name there. I was on the biggest sitcom in Turkey for 4 years. It was kind of like Friends was here or Seinfeld was in the States. It was very, very successful, and yeah, so
Wow, that's awesome.
yeah, it's been fun.
A little bit of an offshoot, but because I saw that you were born in Australia, so I expected much more of an accent.
An Aussie accent,
Is
I
that something
know.
you're conscious of, like trying to keep it more neutral, or is it just because you've been everywhere?
No, do you know what's really funny? And I've played Russian, I've played French, I've played so many different accents because I've lived all over Europe, and I'm good with accents. Obviously, England, and I've done theatre in England. And when you do theatre in London, sweetie darlings, they expect you to do it with a British accent. So I'm familiar. Like I work in a multitude of accents. The really funny thing is that when I'm asked to do Australian on the spot, I'm like, I can't do it anymore because I spent so long getting away. The only time I speak Australian is when I go back home or I'm speaking to an Aussie and then I'm like, "All right, g'day, mate."
Fall back into it after a little
Yeah,
bit.
I do, but I can't if I'm asked on the spot, it's the weirdest thing. Yeah. Like, I can yeah, I don't know what that is, but
That's
I
interesting,
think,
yeah.
because when I lived in London and I was really concentrated on working in a British accent, that when I first came to the States, I sounded way more British than I did Australian, and then I've been here now for several years on and off, and I took some dialect lessons, and I learned how to say can't instead of can't, and and water instead of water. So, so now it's a mixture of things. My
Yeah.
my Aussie friends think I sound American, but to an American, I'm probably like 95% there. There's probably a few little things that
Yeah, it's funny because like, every few words I was picking up an accent, but I'm like, "It doesn't sound Australian." It sounded more
No,
French to
nobody can
me, but
guess
I'm
where
not great with accents, so
I know. I have the perfect spy accent. Nobody can tell where I'm
yeah,
from.
exactly, you can kinda fit in anywhere.
Yeah.
And then watching, The Surprise Visit, which takes place in Virginia, I
Uh-huh,
never would have guessed that, you had to work on an American accent. There was no it's not like
uh-huh.
you saw through it, so
Yeah, I did. Funnily enough, I can I the my best American accent is a Southern. I do a really good Southern, and I was kind of going to do it for the film, but then the two drug addicts are really rural kind of Virginia, so I thought, okay, it's going to be a bit too much, and one of us can be kind of neutral because again, my character could have grown up anywhere or studied anywhere, so I
yeah.
think I'll keep mine neutral. Yeah.
Yeah, theirs were pretty thick.
Yeah, theirs were really thick. Yeah.
Okay, cool, sorry, that was kind of a tangent, so going back,
Mhm.
the first one being a musical obviously makes sense. Do you sing as well?
No, I don't. I People laugh when I sing. So that's a very rare talent, and, I plan on making use of it at some point in my life.
Alright.
I am completely tone deaf.
Alright, so you just did the dancing and then
I
delivered the
just did the
lines speaking.
dancing. I dance. I can dance.
So that role that you had when you were a kid for your first acting role,
Mhm.
did you decide, "Oh, I like this acting thing, maybe not more, but I also like this. I'm gonna make this a career," or was it just kind of you were a kid, so, "That was fun, let's try it again. Oh, that one was fun, let's do this one."
Yeah, it was more like, "Oh, this is fun. I enjoy this." I didn't think I'd make a career out of it. To be honest, I didn't know how to make a career out of it, I wasn't that kind of in that world at the time. So, I think things kind of took off when I became a beauty queen, and then I got offers, and I did a little bit of modeling, and then, some commercials, and then I eventually found myself and I also host as well. So I've done, like as far as hosting goes, I've done news, I've done sports news, I've done game shows. I did a talk show for several years. So and entertainment. In here in LA, I had a film review show, so I got to interview every A-list actor and director in town. So that was quite interesting. So I kind of found myself in front of a camera after the whole beauty queen thing took off. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right,
Mhm.
it's that time of year.
Yeah, yeah. It's chilly in LA. I'm wearing a sweater.
Not often for LA that you do that.
No, no.
That's really cool that you just kind of, I don't wanna say fell into it because 'cause I'm sure you had work and trials along the way,
Oh,
but
yes. A lot, and especially working in a country like I understood Turkish, but I couldn't speak it very well, so then I had to take dialect lessons for that, and also, the culture is completely different, and, it was, it was difficult, and things there now are better because there's more of an industry, but back when I was making it, I really had to fend for myself. I didn't have the protections, of agents and managers and lawyers. I didn't have that kind of team. And it's difficult being a famous and attractive young woman in those countries. You
mm,
get a lot of unwanted attention.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, was it even harder, like, when you'd go in for an audition, since you didn't really speak the language, or maybe you did a bit but weren't as fluent as you are in, say, English,
Uh-huh.
did that add a whole other layer? Because the audition process is tough in your native language.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, interestingly, I kind of made it very early on in my career there. So I got offers. I didn't get asked to audition for
Oh,
things, and
okay.
which is really funny because I literally have thousands of hours of TV and film work under my belt. And I say this without any kind of modesty because like an American TV show is about 30 to 40 minutes and they're 30 to 40 pages. Turkey and there are 10 episodes. Turkish TV shows are 100 to 120 pages. We shoot them in 6 days and they don't shoot with sound. So on the seventh day, you go in to do your sound, and our TV season is 9 months. So we're literally shooting a feature film every week for 9 months.
And
Just,
doing
I
all the
can notice you're
sound
trying to get your head
after.
around it.
Wow.
Yeah, so Turkey is the biggest exporter of TV and film outside America right now. It's the second in the world because there's such a mass production, and our TV shows are watched everywhere in the Far East, in the Middle East, and in all the Russian kind of, and far Western, sorry, Eastern Bloc countries. I mean, I remember I was shooting a film in Bulgaria with two well-known American actors, and I was just a nobody. They didn't know who I was, obviously. And I remember I was walking down the street in Bulgaria, and I had people screaming out my name and running, running around after us.
Yeah.
The American actors turned to and looked at me, and they're like, "Who are you again?" And I was like, "Well, I'm, you know." So there's a big production. So I had thousands of hours of TV and film under my belt, but I didn't know how to audition when I came to America. Isn't that? I knew how to act. I mean, I'm the most confident person on set, but then they're like, "Oh, you have to audition." I was like, "Well," and it's a completely different ball game and a completely. I mean, auditioning is completely different from acting. I mean, it's like trying to sell yourself, and it's
Yeah.
weird. So it took me a while to get my head around that, and interestingly, again, I'm the most confident person on set, with a director. But you get me in front of a casting director, and I get jittery.
Right.
It's a weird thing.
It's like
Yeah,
doing two jobs. You got to do the job so you can get the job and then do your actual craft.
I know, completely, completely.
No,
Yeah,
that's interesting. For
yeah,
the Turkish TV where you're making a movie every week, I mean, that's insane in itself.
it
Do
is.
they do it with no sound because you have to dub it in so many languages in the end that they're just like, "Yeah, whatever," or
No, because you're not shooting on sound stage. The sitcom we shot on a sound stage so we could work all hours. But for most TV shows, like TV dramas and such, you're shooting in somebody's real house or real life sets. So there's a lot of surround sound. There's a call to prayer 5 times a day. So yeah, and again, you're shooting about 20 pages a day. So you're working at least 18 hours a day on set, and it takes you an hour to get there, an hour to get back. You're on an average of 4 hours of sleep. Yeah, when you're
wow,
working. So
that's
yeah, and
insane.
it's funny because, I remember so when I first came to LA, I worked commercials and, smaller roles. I'm a leading lady in my country, but here nobody knows who I am, so I had to start from scratch. And I remember I shot a few videos for Scientology. I'm not a Scientologist, but they do a lot of educational videos and commercials and things. And the casting director lady knew me, and she was like, "Can you cry on cue?" I was like, "Am I really being asked this?" She was like, "Can you put yourself on tape?" I was like, "Okay, lady, I'm gonna give you versions." I was like, "I'm gonna get cocky here." So I did like the one tear, and then I did a little bit more, and then I did the complete bawling, and I sent it into her. She called me back within half an hour. She was like, "If you don't get this job, I don't know. I don't know anything about casting, but my director, but my director is working on set, so he's not going to be able to view it till tonight. I'll get back to you tonight." She got back to me, and she was like, "You got the role." And then I remember the day we were shooting, so they sat me down, they got me in hair and makeup, and they sat me down. The camera's like way over here, and they said, "You just sit there and you get into your zone, and take your time, and once you start crying, we'll zoom in." The whole shoot was over in 2 minutes. I'm not kidding. And when it ended, and the director was like, "It's a wrap," there was applause behind the camera, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Wow, we've never seen that happen." I'm like, Well, you saw my audition tape. What do you mean you never they were like, "Well, we don't know what you were doing before that, before you started you
Right, you
did."
had 2 hours of prep to get that 2-minute tape.
And I'm like, "Well, when you shoot 20 pages a day and you need to cry, you've got 1 take to do it in. If you're lucky, you've got 2. If you need to laugh, you've got 1 take to do it in. There's no, let you get into the mood and the zone. So as an actor, it's great, it's a great, workout. You're working out every muscle.
That's one way to put it, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
The
like,
big
going from the couch to the Olympics.
It is, it really is, and the level of experience you get because of the sheer volume of production is something else. Yeah, you can't get that in any kind of school. So while it was difficult when I was doing it, I'm grateful for the experience.
Yeah, now when you
Mm.
have 9 months to a year to shoot a 2.5-hour movie, you're like, "Oh, this is a vacation."
It is. It really is. I'm like, I'm so happy. I'm grateful to be working in America.
Yeah.
This
Multiple
is like
takes and
yeah, this is like a weekend at Club Med.
yeah, it's amazing. That's even crazier than, I've heard a lot of the Spanish productions, they either
Mhm.
won't have a script or they'll
Uh-huh.
have a script, but it changes on the fly, and they wear an earpiece, and the
Oh,
director
yeah.
just feeds them lines, like, on the fly, and that
Yes,
blows my
that
mind.
that happens on Turkish production as
Okay,
well.
well, there you go.
So, we do have scripts, but things do change on the day. I've literally been given like 7 pages of dialogue on the day I'm shooting this, and they'll be like, "Oh, we changed this scene. We're shooting this instead." And you're like, "Okay, shit." And what they do have, again, because they don't shoot with sound, they have a person screaming lines at you from behind the camera, and you regurgitate them, which I've never done and never did. And I remember my first day on a Turkish set, and I never forget. It was a very very famous singer in Turkey, and he was the lead role. It was this. He was a big star at the time, and I had a scene with him, and I play some girl who's kind of trying to hit on him at the gym or something, some little fan girl, and I had quite a few lines, and I woke up to him, and I'm trying to flirt with him and stuff, and this person's like yelling these lines, and I'm like, huh, huh, and I couldn't do it, and I was like, and the director pulled me aside after like 10 takes or something, which does not happen again in Turkish TV. And they're like, "Are you okay? Are you sure you can do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an experienced actor. I'm a theatrical actor, but I'm not sure who this person is who's yelling these lines at me." I was like, "I know my lines." They're like, "Oh, you're not you okay." So then we did the scene again, and this person shut up, and then I was fine, and it was one take.
So your memorization skills must be off the charts too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Would you get the script, like, maybe a day ahead of time and you read 20 pages and you have it pretty much memorized, or you're, like, up all night? I mean, up all night was 4 hours. There is no night.
Yeah, there's not a lot of time, so yeah, you have to be on the ball, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's
I
amazing.
am I am good with memory. I remember once, even with hosting, I remember once when I was hosting a TV show and our teleprompter went down, there was some technical error, and I literally had to regurgitate, and I had, like, literally 10 pages of dialogue, and I just went, "Okay, I'm rolling with it."
Wow,
I
yeah,
managed.
yeah, because you did say you're a presenter for a lot of different things, but you have to know a bit about all those things, so
Oh,
wow.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
and there's
studying
intros and
constantly.
outros. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, I know we have to get to your new movie, but I'm just so enamored with the Turkish stuff.
It's like being thrown in the deep end of the pool and you sink or swim, so,
I imagine the
yeah.
burnout rate has
It's
to be
not it's
high
not just even it's not just even that you're thrown in the deep end of the pool, you're thrown in the deep end of the pool with a bunch of sharks.
and weights.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Everything's working against you.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, yep,
You
yep,
had to
yep,
have
yep.
seen a lot of people come and go real quick. Like they get on one project and they're like, I just can't keep up with this, and they're out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. I remember, It really is. I call it the school of guerrilla style filmmaking, and it really is because you're racing against time, and you have to be on the ball with everything. I remember I shot a TV drama where I play a battered and abused wife, and it's kind of like Sleeping with the Enemy, Julia Roberts, that kind of thing. A very abusive husband, and I remember I was crying every day for months, and I was beaten up. I remember once I was dragged out by my hair. It was snowing outside. I had silk pajamas on, and I was beaten up and thrown into the pool.
Oh, and you're not
And
on a heated
everybody had
soundstage.
parkas on. It was snowing outside, you know? And we did 3 takes. We did 1, I got out. We did 2, I got out. The 3rd one, they had to pull me out of the bottom of the pool because I was literally frozen at that point, and they
Oh,
put me into a hot shower, and I stayed there for an hour while I thawed out.
yeah.
And I remember my director asked me because when you're shooting that kind of volume, a lot of Turkish stars, they get a little bit of help from a makeup artist. They'll get some eye drops. And I never used it, and I always cried naturally. And one day, my director asked me, he's like, "I don't know how you do it. Can you tell me what it is? What do you use?" And then I told him what it was, and then I couldn't use it anymore because then I got self-conscious. I was like, "Oh no, he knows why I'm crying," and I couldn't
Oh,
use it. So now I don't tell people.
can't share your
They ask
trade
how I do
secrets.
it, I don't tell them. I'm like, "It's my secret."
Yeah. It's like, I'm doing it, just leave it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when I was on the surprise visit, when I'm begging for my life and all this other stuff, it's quite real.
Yeah, you're
I'm
just
still
flipping a
crying.
switch. You just flip a switch. You're just
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
uh-huh.
So what was the transition from Turkey to, well, was it London then Turkey or Turkey then London?
I was first in LA in 2000. I moved to London in 2002 and back to Turkey in 2005. And then I had a TV show in Germany for 2 years, Holland several months, at least 6 months, and all while the while I was still working on my sitcom and TV shows in Turkey. So I had 3 TV shows in 2 separate countries simultaneously for 2 years. Uh,
How?
yeah. So I was traveling between Germany and Istanbul twice a week, and I didn't sleep much
Or at
during
all, yeah.
the years. Yeah, but I made really good money, so it was worth it, and it helped me move back to America because my dream was always to make movies in LA, and kept wanting to move back, and I was like, oh, I want to go back to LA, and then I'd get another TV show or another film, and then I'd be like, okay, well, it's good money, let me do this film, and then I'll go back, or let me do this TV show, and then I'll go back, and then I was like, I got to go back. I can't go back to LA when I'm 45 and go, okay, I'm going to try and have a career here now. So,
Even though you've been working forever.
yeah. So the transition at first, so I knew the life in LA, and it's very similar to life in Australia. So that part of it wasn't hard. I think the starting from scratch part as an actor was kind of hard because, unless you've got a hit TV show in England or Australia, nothing is really watched as far as European production is going. And especially then, I mean, Turkish TV shows have become a lot more popular since I left. And they are actually being watched in Latin America right now. I mean, there are Turkish actors who have like 5, 6, 7 million followers, and half of them are like Latin America and Russia and whatnot, which would have been the case with me. But I left before that kind of period where they started to take off internationally. So I was an unknown, so I had to go to auditions with people who had 2 jobs on their resume, and I'm a well-known star somewhere. I have 20 shows. I have, millions of fans in my country. So that was it was a humbling experience. And I say that without any kind of, ego about it. I was a girl with 2 jobs on my resume when I first started off as well. We all start from somewhere, but
Yeah.
you've already made it somewhere, and you already have, you're treated like an A-list star in your country, and then you come here and you have to, knock on doors and say, well, I've actually worked a lot.
Right.
And in some ways, you kind of want to be humble about it. You don't want to be tooting your own horn, but after a while, it gets a little bit exasperating because you're like, "Dude, do I really
Yeah,
have."
I've put in the time.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a mixture of both. At first, it was very liberating because, I could walk out of my house without makeup on. I could, run out of my house in a t-shirt and flip-flops on, and in my country, I can't do those things.
Right.
Yeah, because 'cause they're like,
Eating a
"This is what she
restaurant.
really looks like without makeup on," you get a picture in the press the next day. So,
Yeah, Turkish
um
TMZ.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, I found it quite freeing at first, but after a while, I kind of got a little bit exasperated, and I didn't really love the audition process, and now I've come to a place where I can actually say, "Well, I enjoy this because this is part of my work, and, I try to enjoy it a little bit more, and I think my auditions have gotten better as a result. So yeah,
Were
so
you able
that's
to Sorry, go ahead.
so that was my transition in a
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fascinating. Were you able to hand a director or a casting agent or whoever it would be, like a DVD of like, here's 10 episodes of 10 different shows I've done? Did that help at
Well,
all, or was it just we
yeah,
don't
well,
know
the
you?
funny thing is I didn't even have a reel when I first came here because everybody knew who I was. Again, I didn't have to
You
audition
didn't
for
need one,
anything.
yeah.
So I had to get a reel together, and funnily enough, because all of my work is in another language, to them it's like foreign, they don't understand the humor or whatever. So I've done a lot more dramatic roles here in the States, and a lot more independent production things. But still, I don't get a lot of comedy offers because they can't assess my comedy abilities. So they're like, "Well, we want to see a comedy reel." And I'm like, "Well, here's a comedy reel." They're like, "Oh, well, it's in another language and they're not going to watch that." They're not.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Man, you have a fascinating story.
Oh, I have a lot of fascinating
I'm
stories.
sure you do. I mean, I keep checking the time because I told your PR person we'd be about half an hour. I don't want to keep you
Oh,
all
you
day,
can
but
go over. I don't
all
mind.
right, we're just scratching the surface, it seems. uh, so I'm just trying to get my bearings on where to start.
With a surprise visit.
Yeah, there you go. How did the surprise visit come across your desk now that you're back in LA?
So the surprise visit is actually so originally we had a horror film that we wanted to make on this estate. It's a historic. It's on the historic landmarks of America list, and the estate itself would lend itself very well to a horror film. We thought, and we came up with it. We found a great script. Funnily enough, it was called The Estate, and but it involved kids, and we were going to start shooting in March last year, and then the pandemic hit. So shooting in a pandemic with children was, quite impossible. We figured out early on, so we are like, oh, darn, we can't make that one. And then we traveled to Virginia to visit family in August last year. And while we were there, we were like, oh, well, we still kind of want to make a film. And we thought, we kind of started off with the idea of The Strangers, which is a cult horror film. Obviously, our film has nothing to do with it. It's not similar in any way, but it's literally, there's three people in the whole film.
Hmm.
And then there's people in masks, which would be great.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's a pandemic friendly film for you. So, and this was obviously the middle of the pandemic, pre-vaccine. So we wanted to find what we could do that had minimal locations, if we could all shoot it on a single location, and that involved a minimal cast, because the location itself, there's old people living there, and we didn't want to subject them to, a cast and crew of 100 people, and COVID. So we wanted to keep things very tight. And then our executive producer Nathan Coles kept telling us, well, there was this robbery, there's this theft that occurred on this estate, there's this theft that occurred on this estate. And we kept like listening to the story, and we are like, okay, well, and they were the groundskeeper of the estate, who actually still works there, has a drug addicted son and girlfriend. He has a girlfriend, and they robbed this house when the lady of the house was away. And he kept telling us this story. And we are like, okay, well, that's, I'm sure it was a very difficult situation for everybody involved, but it doesn't really lend itself that much to a film. But we kind of explored the idea, and then so the film is based on a true story, and we started off with that idea, but then we obviously kind of Hollywoodized the ending a little bit. Yeah,
Sure, yeah. And
yeah,
it does end up having, like, you really feel for the characters, especially uh the the younger woman who's, going after your house.
yeah,
You really feel for her because she's like a prisoner of her own life. And
exactly.
then obviously your character is literally a
Yeah.
prisoner in her own life.
Yeah, well, we wanted that. We wanted, we wanted you to sympathize with every character and see their side of the story. Obviously, the drug addict son might look like the less sympathetic character, but in the beginning of the film, you see him at his mother's graveyard site, and he's obviously been through. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
He's obviously been through a lot, and and obviously he didn't choose to become a drug addict. He obviously had some painful situation in his life, so you kind of sympathize with him. And he's, and even his dad says, who's played by Eric Roberts, he's a good kid, so his essence is a good kid.
Yeah.
He didn't ask for this, he didn't. And then obviously the his girlfriend, and she finds out she's pregnant early on in the film. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. So she has her own set of motivations of why she's doing what she's doing, because they're down and out. They're living in a broken down RV, and they don't have food. They don't have money to buy food. And then my character, well, you could say she's kind of born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She comes from a privileged background, but then she's also suffered a great loss. She's just lost her dad. So she's in mourning, she's grieving, and I don't care if you're rich or poor. Grieving is a universal language. We all hurt the same, when we lose people we love. So she's in mourning, and then something really terrifying happens to her in the middle of in the midst of the film. So she's in a state of shock, and she's not used to this kind of drug addicts, and she's come from a very protected background, and she's at a loss. She's a fish out of water, and she has to figure out how she's going to survive this. So I think you kind of find a little bit of sympathy in each character, and you kind of want them all to make it, but that's not quite possible, is
Right.
it?
Yeah. One thing I found really interesting, about all the characters, I'd say there was, probably the two younger people, Eric Roberts' character, your character. You could really make the same movie, following each one of the characters. Like,
Yeah.
each character was the protect. Like, obviously that's generally the rule, but I just thought it
Yeah.
was really interesting the way that worked out.
Yep. Yeah, 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 yeah. And I kind of like how the way the two couples, because it goes from one couple to the other, obviously the more affluent one, and then the drug addicts, the more down and out one. And it's kind of a little bit of story of the haves and have-nots, but either couple could have been exchanged with either one, depending on what circumstances
Mhm.
life served them. So it's, you know, and again, if you're a if you're of sound judgment and education, and you have an accident happen, I mean, God forbid anybody have that kind of accident happen in their house. You would call a cop and say, well, there's been an accident, but again, they're high, they're drug addicts, and so they don't make good decisions.
Right.
Their decision making is impaired, and then one bad decision leads to another, and it's just this snowball that's kind of coming at you. You see it coming, but you can't feel. You don't have any means of escaping or any kind of way out. You just have to get through it.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you were what was it, your executive producer on the movie? Was that your other
No, I was
title?
actually one of the producers as well. So
Oh,
when I
producer,
was
okay.
I was either on set as an actor or I was on set as a producer.
Right, because when
Doing-
you first started talking about it, it sounds like you weren't just like, because sometimes it seems like executive producer means like I threw some money at it or I put my name on it,
No.
or but it seems like you were like instrumental into making it.
Oh, yes. No, well, the story belongs to us. We wrote the story. We had somebody else write the script, Stephen Ross Mayer, who's a fabulous writer and a very dear friend of mine for years, as Nick Leon, our director, has been. So the three of us have been good friends, and we've all worked separately, but the three of us haven't worked together. And we were always trying to do something where the three of us could do something together. So I'm glad, I'm very happy it finally worked out. But yeah, I wrote the story. I did most of the casting, the pre-production, finding all the crew, which was really, really hard because again, it's, Virginia is not a kind of a hub of production like Los Angeles and New York are. In LA, you can find, 1,000 makeup artists, you can find 1,000 production designers, you know. So when we first started with the film, I remember we were about 2 weeks into, we were 2 weeks away from actually shooting the film. So we were still in pre-production and I didn't have half my crew in place still. And
Wow.
I panicked. I
Yeah.
I really panicked, and I thought, "Oh God, I have really bitten off more than I can chew this time. I don't think I'm gonna be able to pull this one off." And I think by the grace of God,
I'm
we
surprised
had some
it even
divine
crossed your
intervention.
mind after all the. I'm surprised that thought even crossed your mind after the Turkey, Germany, whatever, three
Exactly my
shows at once.
point.
Like you can. It seems like whatever challenge comes up, you're just gonna do it. So
I'm gonna do it. Yeah, that's exactly me. When I tell people, when people say that's impossible, I'm like, that word doesn't exist in my dictionary. It just doesn't.
yeah,
But this time, this was one of the times where I thought, "Oh gosh, I don't know. I really think I've done a bit too much here." But there was some divine intervention. I really think there was some. I was helped along the way by some angels or some people up there looking out for me, and we managed to pull it together. And again, I had a lot of help from Nick, our director, and our executive producer Nathan Coles, and we all kind of rallied together and we made it happen. And I remember the first day I was on set, I kind of looked around and everybody was just doing such a fantastic job. Like everybody, there wasn't a person in there where I thought, oh God, that this person is like, you know what I mean? There's always one
you're
person
gonna
on
be
set that's like
carrying
the
them.
weakest link, and you're not
Yeah.
too sure if they're going to actually do their job as you want them to. But everybody, like the sets look amazing. The actors, I didn't have scenes that day, so I was actually able to sit behind the camera and and um, and watch the scenes, and they were all knocking it out of the park. And I was just like, wow, somehow we managed, and everybody's doing. It was there was a minute of pride in there. It wasn't egotistic in any way. It was just like, wow, we pulled it off. And then and it was also that you know the pride of watching just these amazingly talented people going about their jobs. And it was very humbling. It was very, very humbling. I was like, okay, this is good. This is good.
And
Thank
where
you.
was it timeline wise? Because you said it was March 2020. You were still trying to make the estate, and then COVID, and you're like, well, that's not going to happen. But you
Yeah.
made this.
So we went out to Virginia in August,
Okay,
and we did a road trip. We actually drove. We got an RV and we drove across from
it was
LA.
probably the only way at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't want to fly and we didn't want to stay in hotels. So that part was lovely. And then we arrived in Virginia in August and we're kind of toying around with it. And then I think we kind of came up with an idea around September. And then we passed it on to the writer. So he wrote it in September. We had the script ready in September, and then we started pre-production probably mid-September, and we were shooting by mid-October.
Wow.
And it was funny because I remember I was looking for a line producer or a unit production manager, and we wanted to hire locally as much as we could because what we didn't have a huge budget. I mean, um, so as the crew, as much as we could, we wanted to hire locally. And I remember I found one lady who'd worked as a unit production manager on very big Hollywood films. She was originally based in LA, but she moved back home during the pandemic, and she worked on like $50 million films. And I was like, we're not quite there. She was like, well, I worked on an indie film, and and it was a $2 million budget, and it was and I didn't want to tell her we were under we were under that.
Yeah.
and she was like, and I finished the production on time and on budget, and everything went great. And we had 2-3 months of pre-production. She was like, how long is your pre-production? I'm like, well, we're going to start shooting in 1 month. And she was like, it is not possible. That's what she told me. I was like, and this is my, and I've worked in production in various facets of production, but I've never produced a film from beginning to end myself. So this was my first. So I was kind of a little green as well. But I was gung ho about it. I was like, nope, I'm going to do it. And she was like, well, you do realize you're playing one of the leads in the film, and you're probably going to look very tired, and it's going to affect your performance. And I'm like, well, I meant to look a bit haggard because I'm kind of running for my life. And she was like, well, it's going to affect your performance. I'm like, I didn't want to tell her, lady, I'm used to shooting.
Yeah, it's like, sit
Stages a
down,
month.
I got a story.
I didn't want to be too cocky at that point because she was adamant it couldn't be done. And I was like,
Right.
no, we did it.
Yeah.
It can be done.
So I'm guessing she did not come on board?
She did not come on board. We found somebody else, and we delivered on time, on budget. We shot it in 2 weeks. And but it was very tiring, yes. So I was, because the whole film it's very physical. My role is very physical because I ran for miles and miles every single day. It was a great
Yeah,
workout.
in the woods too, not even on a road.
Yeah, in the woods. Yeah, that part was hard because it's the fall in Virginia, so all the trees are raining down leaves, which makes for a beautiful. I mean, you've seen the film.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah,
scenery is
so
gorgeous, yeah.
yeah, yeah, the scenery is gorgeous. So, but any direction you take, a step in, there's piles and piles of dead leaves everywhere. It was beautiful colors. The foliage is beautiful, but it's also wet and slippery. So you're running up and down mountains with some slippers on.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, we did have a stunt double on that scene where I rolled down the hill, but we didn't use him. That is really me rolling down the hill. So it's a very and a physical role. So I'm literally running for miles every day. I'm running for my life, or I'm fighting for my life. There's some action and fight scenes in there. So and then so when I'm not running for my life or fighting for my life as an actor on set, I'm on set as a producer. So let's just say I did not sleep a lot for that whole month.
Did it remind you of old times?
It did. It did. It really did. It really did. And every time I go back to Virginia, I have very fond memories now. Not only is it my first role as a producer, but it's my film. It's personal. It's my baby, and then I have obviously a connection to the role and the people involved. So yeah,
For
it's
sure.
personal. Yeah.
How involved were you in the, post-production?
That's an interesting question. So again, like I said, I'd never produced a film from beginning to end, and I knew all the pre-production stuff as an actor, and I knew all the onset stuff again I've been making films for 20 years. So that stuff was easy for me to navigate. The pre-production stuff, I was a fish out of water. I had no idea. And then so Vertical bought our film, which was really, we were wowed because they're a big distributor, and they have a lot of very big films. So we were like very enamored that they that they thought our film was good, and they took the time to distribute it. And so that was because again, a lot of the time most producers first production usually doesn't see the light of the day. They're not very good or feasible. So the fact that we actually made the film, and then we made a decent film, and then now it's actually been
Right.
picked up by this distributor, we were like, okay, this is good. We were very happy. But then we got these deliverables, these delivery lists, which I'd never dealt with. And the legal, we had a whole list of legal, that was okay. We had a whole list of marketing, like electronic press kits and actor bios and photos, and that stuff was okay. And then there was a technical list. And I looked at that and I was like, is this in English? I was like, is this Japanese or some other language I don't know about? And so I kind of was like, and then I pass it on to somebody else. Uh, so that's how we did the. I mean, the editing. I've been in an editing room. I have editing experience, so that stuff I was okay with. But the other technical side of things of what sound and stems and that stuff was foreign language to me. So I was like, okay, I'm
Right.
this with other people who understand this.
There you go. That's
I
your
pass
job as a
that on.
producer, right? Find the
Yeah,
expert.
yeah, exactly. There's people who are experts in this field of post production, and I'm gonna pass that buck down.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to see it with an audience?
No, not yet.
And
Not
you
yet.
does that
So
mean you
we have
have something lined up?
So what we're planning on doing is that when we open theatrically, we're going to get our whatever cast and crew are available in LA to come out, and you know, I don't think anybody's doing, especially with Omicron coming back now, doing kind of red carpet gala. I mean, we might just put up a few posters and take some photos and do some interviews. I don't know. I don't know. We haven't planned it out yet, but
Yeah.
so I'm going to watch it with on the big screen with everybody, and I think I've seen it so many times going through the editing and everything, and which is an interesting experience because as an actor, you normally don't see the film until it's premiere, the gala night. So that was interesting, I'm going to get to see it on the big screen, and I think because it is, again, so kind of what's the word I'm looking for? So picturesque, the Virginia Fall, and and the scenes are quite stunning. I think it's going to lend itself well to the big screen.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing it with everybody and on the
Very
big
cool.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just gotta feel so cool to like it went from your concept and then you're watching it in a like a proper theater, big screen surrounded by people. That's
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm in gratitude every day. I'm like, oh well, this is just a blessing that, and the pandemic was a difficult time for everybody, and it was difficult for filmmaking as well. And the fact that we pulled it off. Not only we've made a solid thriller film, but we made it, as a first time producer in the middle of a pandemic, which was difficult. I'm not, it wasn't easy exactly, uh, because it was pre-vaccines and there wasn't enough really literature, or obviously we tested everybody was masked, everybody, and thankfully everybody was very sensible on set, and they were very responsible, and in that way. So and our crew were amazing. There was a lot of heavy lifting because it was a very tight crew, and we didn't have a crew of 50 people, so there was a lot of heavy lifting for everybody, and they made it work. I mean, our camera crew was phenomenal and what they did. So yeah, I'm feeling very, very blessed that uh, again, during the pandemic, we got to make something that's a solid endeavor on everybody's behalf, not
yeah.
just me, for all the actors, the two younger drug addict actors. I mean, we looked at 3,000 girls for the Annabelle role
Wow.
and 2,000 boys, well, or young men, young ladies, for the Casey role, and because their performance was really paramount and their chemistry was really paramount to the film, and they really knocked it out of the park. Their performances, I mean, I watched them every day, going, "Wow, we are so lucky to work with such talented kids," in this difficult time. So it was a real blessing to be on set. And I never forget Eric Roberts's comment on the last day. So he worked the last couple of days on our film, and the finale. Obviously, and then when we wrapped, he said, "You know what?" He said, and he's worked on 800 something films.
Yeah, he's in
What
everything.
I know, he's such a legend. He really is, and he's worked on everything from like Christopher Nolan, and he's been nominated for an Oscar, nominated for a Golden Globe, from everything from A-list to smaller, much smaller budget films. And I think it's a real testament to his love of cinema and filmmaking. And he said to us, I've worked on a lot of film, obviously, but and a lot of the time you see, one actor really knocking it out of the park, and other actors kind of calling it in, phoning it in, or one or two actors doing a really great job. But he said that this film is a rare one that I've been on in a long amount of time, that every single actor is giving 110% and everybody is knocking it out of the park. And I was just like, wow. Thank you. I was like, thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like he knows. If anyone knows, he knows because
If
he's seen
anyone
it
knows,
all.
he knows. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was like, wow, that is a really great compliment coming from you. Really great compliment
That's
coming
one
from
thing I've been kind of seeing as a theme with these indie movies, or like micro budget. A few people have called it, where it's a guerrilla crew, guerrilla filmmaking, like you were saying.
you. It
Um,
is.
no one's there for the paycheck. You're there because you want to
No.
make this movie, and I think
Yeah.
it has to make it a better experience.
Yeah. And you make it with love. You put in a lot of love. And I think all of the actors it shows, and everybody in the crew, they all believed in it, and they all gave 110%. And I'm thrilled, and I'm very, very thankful. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
outstanding. Yeah.
yeah, and again, I mean, coming from the guerrilla school of filmmaking, I mean, I even when I was like a big star on set, and when I was getting the A-list treatment, I'd remember there'd be times on set when the sun's going down and the director's really rushing because there's one scene that he's got to film and finish that day, and we have to move set. And I've carried lighting equipment, and which is you just don't do. But you've got like half an hour to make your last scene, and you really need to make that last scene. I will, yeah,
Yeah.
roll up your sleeves, and you get it done. You get it done.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Well, Serah, you're fascinating. Thank you
Thank
for taking the
you.
time. I really appreciate it. This is awesome.
Thank
Why don't
you.
you tell everybody where they can find more of you, if you want to plug any social media or anything, and then where they can see the surprise visit.
Uh-huh. So Serah Henesey on Instagram, Serah with an E, Serah. And we've got a page for the surprise visit also. They can search surprise visit on Instagram. We also have a web page, but we haven't really had a lot of time to spend on that. So the surprise visit is coming to a theater, hopefully near you. They're planning 5 cities right now. New York, LA is 2 of them. The other 3, I don't know quite yet. But follow us on social media. So they're coming we're getting a theatrical release, and then it's going to be available on VOD. And we hope you enjoy watching it as much as we enjoyed making it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time.
I'd like to thank Serah one more time for coming on the show to talk to me about her amazing career, her awesome story. It's really one of a kind. I've never had a conversation like that. And of course, the surprise visit coming January 14th. I also got to talk to Jackie Vinay, who is her co-star in the movie, The Surprise Visit. So if you haven't seen that video, check that one out too, and watch out for The Surprise Visit coming January 14th. Also, make sure you like and subscribe. We're really going to be ramping up our content now that the holidays are over. I got a lot of unboxings, a lot of interviews, a lot of new movie coverage. Tons of things coming your way. You're not going to want to miss out. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts will be found after the show and in the show notes. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for just $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows, audio and video. So tons of stuff coming your way. We're going to keep you plenty entertained. And on a more personal note, speaking of entertainment, I have an ongoing comedy comic series out, and just this month in January, Chapter 2 launched. with issue 8. So there's 7 issues currently available. You can buy them individually, print or digital, or a trade paperback. It's going to be added to the site any day now. That we did a crowdfunding campaign on. Had a lot of awesome feedback on that. So you can find all that and more. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 just launched today. We got 6 issues, 1 a month coming your way for that, and we're working on some other cool things, some light animation, things like that. Socialstudiescomic.com. Thanks.